Hello, everyone. We're going to let a few people come in for another minute or so. Get comfortable in your seats. We've got a great session coming up. Juste quelques minutes, une autre minute avant qu'on commence. Sentez-vous à l'aise. All right. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. We'll start now. We'll begin. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bienvenue tout le monde de nous joindre to our final plenary today on collaborating across institutions and disciplines to wrap up this past week of the forum. I hope you've had a chance to catch in on the great panels we've had and discussions, and we'll close it up today with another great panelists together today. So kudos, first of all, to our hosts this week, the Waterloo Climate Institute and their team. I saw Sarah, Michelle, Nadine, Vanita, Darren. And let's not forget our live translators. We have Caroline and Mike, who are making this forum, I say, truly Canadian in both our official languages. And I'm going to try to remind our speakers today, myself included, to speak a little slower, but I've had a chance to listen to the French-speaking side, and I thought it was great. So really, the services are there for everyone. So if you go on your toolbar at the bottom, you can easily just click back and forth to the French and English. It's very easy to do, and I recommend you to go ahead if need be. So the overview of this session today, I think it's more about stepping back, even circling back from what we've heard this week and looking on how collaboration actually happens, either across disciplines, across the institutions, and across our networks that we all are a part of. And how can we strengthen those connections to advance climate-ready education? That's the goal today. So we'll start with our panelists, and following my discussion with them, I'm inviting all of you in La La Land there listening on the virtually to raise your hands and to get into the conversation. Share what your successes are and your thoughts on how you connect people to advance climate-ready education. So get your questions ready, raise your hands. It's the easiest way. At the bottom, you press raise your hands into reactions. And then you can open your screens too. It's always great to see faces and to really trying to be informal here and have as much fun and learning as much as possible. Although it's a pleasure for me and a privilege to share my screen with such accomplished panelists. As you can see on the photograph, we'll be hearing first from Dr. Siebert Adamson, Vice President Academic at Mohawk College. We'll follow with Sonia Payson, Climate Lead at Universities Canada, and then Dr. Terry Balzer, Chair of Sustainability in Higher Education across Canada, or SHIAC as most of us know it. It's my sincere pleasure to moderate this group. I'd like to try and make this virtual session a little bit more interactive, so I hope that you'll be able to join in at the end. And also use your reaction buttons. If you're in agreement with something that's being said, you can put a thumbs up or a little heart. I think it keeps things alive, and I think it makes things a little bit more fun. So first of all, who am I? My name's Serge Dupuis. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at l'Université de Moncton in New Brunswick. It's a French-speaking university. And I specialize in climate change adaptation and project management. I've been here since 2013, but I've worked over 30 years in municipal engineering. I focused on design, construction, operations, replacing infrastructure. And I spent more than a decade managing a growing city's engineering for a while. I'm proud also to have developed expertise in municipal asset management and in the development of climate change adaptation plans for both urban cities and rural communities. Since then, I'm a professional engineer. I'm a fellow of Engineers Canada, which we've had earlier on some other panels. I'm a co-founder of the New Brunswick Institute on Infrastructure and former president of Engineers and Geoscientists New Brunswick. But today, I think I've been invited mostly for my role as co-chair of Canada's National Adaptation Skills Working Group. the ASWG, which is run by Natural Resources Canada. We're about 40 people in the group nationally, coast to coast, and we identify and promote opportunities and conditions that will increase development and application of adaptation knowledge, skills, behaviors in the workforce. And we're focusing initially on the big, we've heard also this week, the professions of engineering, landscape architecture, planning, accounting, and a few others in Canada-wide. So the ASWG, or the working group, supports the National Adaptation Strategy, which I've had a chance to work on also, the economy and workers system. Canada is a skilled, diverse, and adaptable workforce that's supported by education, training, knowledge, and skills. And that's what we're trying to do. And by our objectives is identifying gaps, barriers to building adaptation skills in our country, providing leadership, leveraging our networks, which is a lot what we're doing this week, and focusing our resources and support, making resources information available to everyone, and hoping that other professions and sectors are jumping in. So the real beauty of that work, of that group, is the power to share new training, new opportunities on their own networks across Canada, thus having a huge reach. We're almost like a loudspeaker to saying, look, here's what we're offering, here's what other people are offering. And that seems to go together and helping us move forward to promote all those nice trainings. So enough about me and about what's going on here. Let's go to our panelists, and we'll first start with a little 5-minute introduction of each people to talk a bit about what they do and what their organizations are doing. And after that, I'll come back and pepper them with questions and really go deeper into how we can work on our theme today. So we'll start off with our first panelist, Dr. Siebert Adamson. Dr. Siebert Adamson is co-chair of the Steering Committee for the Colleges for Resilient Recovery. He currently serves as Vice President Academic at Mohawk College, where he provides a strategic leadership across academic divisions, including the development and delivery of programming through schools and centers of excellence, applied research, and the Center of Experiential Learning and Partnerships. Together with his VP colleagues, Siebert supports more than 30,000 full-time, part-time, and apprenticeship students. He has a number of senior leadership roles that he's held at Mohawk, including Vice President Students, International and Alumni, and Dean, with responsibilities spanning continuing education, academic quality, the library, and the Center for Teaching and Learning. Prior to joining Mohawk College, Siebert served as Executive Director of the Council of Community College of Jamaica, Human Resources Development Manager at the University of Technology in Jamaica, and in a range of educational leadership and faculty positions. He currently serves on several boards and committees, including the Ontario Learn Board of Management, the Ontario College Quality Assurance Board, and the Halton Industry Education Council. Now it's time to test your reactions, people, by helping me in welcoming Dr. Siebert Adamson to tell us a bit more about his great work. Please, Dr. Siebert, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Serge. It's so exciting to be here and to be with this group and to be a member of this illustrious panel of speakers to be sharing in today's session and to talk a little bit about C2R2, as we call it, the Canadian Colleges for Resilient Recovery. C2R2 is a coalition of 15 colleges, CEGEPs, and polytechnics from right across Canada who, during the latter part of the pandemic, we got together and were thinking about how were we going to be responding to some of the emerging needs that we were seeing in the industry, just given some of the reports that we also heard coming out. And we wanted to make an immediate impact and to lead in training and deploying workers right across the country, particularly in the low carbon economy and that part of the workforce that was going to be supporting energy security and sustainability. And so we got together a number of institutions right across the country, from coast to coast to coast, from BC to Yukon, just really talking about how we wanted to approach this. And so the coalition got together and we developed some guiding principles, which were really built on three main principles. One, that we wanted to foster inclusivity and equity. We wanted to make sure that we were developing this inclusive and equitable workforce, particularly working with our indigenous communities as well. We wanted to provide the skills that were required. We wanted to develop training solutions and research opportunities across the country in this space. And we also wanted to ensure that we were developing curricula in a way that was going to be supporting the emerging needs. And so built on Stanford's social innovation collective impact model, which talks about developing a common agenda, developing shared measurement systems, mutually reinforcing activities, continuing communication. With Mohawk College serving as that secretariat, we developed this coalition called C2R2, which then through federal funding over the last 5 years, we've been able to really develop a number of different opportunities, either through research opportunities, education and training, work integrated learning opportunities, and really focusing on our First Nations institutes. So over the last 5 years, we've been able to benefit from over $80 million worth of funding from the federal government, working with our 15 member coalition partners. We also work with 15 national leading industry groups across the country, including the Canadian Council for Indigenous Business, Canadian Green Building Council, the Canadian Renewable Energy Association, Canadian Clean Tech Alliance, a number of these different organizations. And over the last 5 years, with that amount of funding, we have been able to develop over 150 micro-credential opportunities that have been deployed throughout these institutions. And we've been able to support over 25,000 learners throughout the entire country as well, working with over 1,000 employer groups. We have been able to provide more than 100 work integrated learning opportunities. We've connected and provided support and training for over 22 First Nations communities and connected with over 70 equity serving organizations through this program. Our programming so far, we have looked at programming supporting the low carbon economy, so how to advance access and green skills training. We have looked at resilient housing and upskilling for Canadian communities. And this was a program particularly geared towards Indigenous communities and helping to establish a community of practice to mobilize training and work integrated learning opportunities for Indigenous communities. And then most recently, we are now working on a program that is supporting green skills retrofitting of buildings. And so really working through that. Throughout the program, we've been able to also deploy the training solutions through what we call our Quick Train Canada platform, which is this national platform where all 15 members of the coalition connect through, and our learners, that's where they go to connect and access the training. For the most part, the training that we have provided to all learners have been tuition free, again, thanks to the support from federal government, as well as some industry partners who heard of the work that C2R2 was doing and connected with us to say this resounded very well. Because when we think about the kinds of report that we were hearing coming through in terms of the millions of jobs that were going to be in this space and where reports were seeing. And so, for example, there was one report that cited that there were over 267 million young people who were not engaged in education and who were seeking for employment. And that in Canada in particular, that by 2030, there were going to be over 1 million jobs that were going to be requiring some level of understanding of green skills and understanding sustainability principles. And so we were very proud of doing that work. We have a robust governance framework that supports the programming. We have built national communities of practice that allows folks to connect with the industry and to also connect with their institutions. We have developed framework that supports quality assurance of the development and delivery of the programs, as well as we've developed really good licensing agreements across provinces. Because one of the things that we found was that there were a number of institutions who were signing on, and we were developing the work. And rather than having duplication of efforts, we were able to then work across the various provinces and territories to be able to deploy the training. So really, really supporting the green building and the low carbon economy as we have been, as we think about really just building a good economy for Canada. So in a nutshell, that's what C2R2 is. We've been really doing this work again, like I said, for 5 years. Really, really excited. We're very happy about our successes. And in fact, I can also share that one of the things that we're very proud of is that within our first 14 months, we were able to train almost 15,000 learners, and we gave back, sad to say, that almost half the money back to federal government because of the organization that we were able to do. Hence, we've been seen as a really trusted partner. And that's one of the things that excited us about being part of this conversation, because I believe that as we think about our Canadian economy and looking at sustainability and how are we going to be connecting in all these different pieces, we've got to work across provinces, we've got to work across territories, we've got to work with various communities, and as institutions, whether we be colleges, CGEPs, polytechs, universities, we've got to collaborate, because that's how we're going to be making the kinds of impact that this country desires. Thanks so much, Serge.
I'll get back to you, Siebert. I almost laughed when you said, in a nutshell, man, you've been a busy person in the last little while, and what a great program. So we'll get back to you a little later with more questions, but now we're going to move on to our next panelist to introduce herself and a bit of the work she's doing, and Sonia Payson. She is the climate lead at Universities Canada, where she supports institutions in achieving their climate goals and in building a national climate action network. She's also the author of The Campus Green, a sustainability column published by University Affairs magazine, you might have seen before. With more than 2 decades of experience in environmental policy, Sonia has advised on federal greenhouse gas reduction programs, emission trading systems, and climate resilient strategies for major infrastructure projects across the country. She previously served as Senior Policy Advisor at Housing, Infrastructure and Communities Canada, and has published sector-specific greenhouse gas quantification guidelines. Passionate about the education and community engagement, Sonia founded the Dolesa Eco-Learning Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting global environmental awareness. She has also contributed locally as vice chair of Ottawa's Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee and as a member of the Ottawa Coalition to End Violence Against Women. Now it's time again to test your reactions, folks, to helping me in welcoming Sonia Payson to tell us a bit more about her great work. Sonia?
Yes, thank you for that wonderful intro, Serge. Great to be here, and happy everybody can make it today. Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with an intro about Universities Canada. So we are a membership organization and provide 97 universities across Canada with a unified voice for higher education, research, and innovation. Our priorities and direction are led by members' needs, and our business is overseen by a 13-member board of directors, and that includes 12 university presidents and the president of UC, which is Gabriel Miller. In addition, we also have several committees which form our governance structure, and where specific topics such as research, education, and finance are discussed, and advice is brought to the board. So what do we what do we do? So what are some of our main activities? We advocate for Canadian universities at the federal level. We provide a forum for university leaders to share ideas and address challenges in higher education. We support students by providing online information on university study and offering scholarships on behalf of private sector companies. We foster collaboration among universities and governments, private sector, communities, and international partners on a variety of important issues and initiatives. And we also run and manage University Affairs magazine. So looking at some of our current priorities, we are really focused right now on the concept of building a stronger Canada, which involves focusing on priorities such as supporting institutions with research and innovation, attracting global talent, campus infrastructure improvements, and also ensuring Canadians understand the value of universities. Turning to our climate work, so the Climate Initiative, it's a 3-year initiative. It was launched in 2023 with the goal to support and promote the climate efforts of member universities and develop a strong climate network. So this initiative is framed by 6 key action areas. You may have seen we've always kind of posted our slide of these 6 key action areas on our website, and you may have seen it also at our webinars. But the 6 key action areas, just to name them quickly, there's measure and reporting, increased investment, collaboration, increased awareness, sharing of resources, and addressing impact. So all these 6 key action areas translate into a variety of activities that we've been doing to date. And for example, we have and are hosting Climate Leads webinars. And I will note that we have one on climate resilience next Wednesday, if you're interested. We share the Climate Leads newsletter on a variety of environmental topics. We've done waste, we've done natural infrastructure, just as some examples. We share resources and best practices. So we have a climate hub for our members, the Climate Leads. And yeah, that has like a variety of different resources on there for people to check out. We do some data collection on climate activities. So we have collected information from institutions on their greenhouse gas inventory progress and commitments, as one example. We also publish reports on climate initiatives at universities. We've also developed a sustainable development guide for universities as well. We also share climate-focused funding opportunities. And one other aspect that we do that's part of the climate initiative is that we're assessing University of Canada's own carbon inventory. And we've developed a few targets as well. So I would say that our climate initiative and UC is a bit more like we're more the facilitators and enablers for collaboration between universities and helping them support them in their advancement of implementing climate education. And we also focus in other areas such as research and like campus operations as well. So I guess one last thing I would mention is as the climate initiative gets starting to kind of wrap up this coming up March, we are currently putting together a keystone event, Building Resilient Futures. You may have heard of it. So we've partnered up with SHIAC and University of Calgary and McGill, as well as others. And the event focuses on assessing how we can leverage the collective capacity of institutions to build a more resilient and regenerative future. So really looking forward to those discussions and happy to share a final report of the findings from the event with anyone interested. And if you're interested, actually, there is still time to register. So you can send me a message. I can give you some information on that, or you can actually check out we do have a web page on Universities Canada's site. So yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. I'm very happy to be here today and engage on this very important topic of institutional collaboration and promoting climate education.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sonia. That's quite impressive, really. Quite great work on, like you said, to facilitate and collaborate, which is really important on our end. And our next panelist, Dr. Terry Balzer, is a passionate scholar. She's an experienced academic leader and mentor, currently serves as chair of SHIAC, the Sustainability in Higher Education across Canada. She has 15 years of senior academic leadership. She has received numerous awards and recognitions for her work in soil and environmental science, including being named a Fulbright Distinguished Chair to India and U.S. Professor of the Year. Throughout her career, Terry has focused on connecting and empowering people across public, academic, and private sectors to work towards a more sustainable future. She's a professor of sustainability and futures thinking in the Faculty of Sciences and serves as academic lead for sustainability within the University of Calgary's Institute for Transdisciplinary Scholarship. where her work explores how higher education can contribute to sustainable and regenerative responses to climate change and planetary health. Now you know, folks, what to do. Use your reactions to help me welcome Dr. Terry Balzer to tell us a bit more about her great work. Go ahead, Terry.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for being here, for taking some time out of your day. And Michelle, it's been a fantastic event. I've enjoyed logging in all the days and participating multiple times. So thank you so much for that. I'll just share a little bit about SHIAC, or the Sustainability in Higher Education Across Canada network. It was started a number of years ago by a few people who really wanted to try to build connections across Canada for those of us working in the area of sustainability. And so far, we've got about 40 institutions that have joined the network, people representing 40 institutions, about 130 people on our list. We meet regularly with a general meeting once a month. We also have just started this year a special interest group for teaching and learning specifically. The network includes members and regular participants, about 30 regular participants from office staff, from offices of sustainability, staff and instructors and faculty from offices of teaching and learning, and then also faculty members who teach sustainability either in part as part of the work that they do, or in whole. I teach introductory sustainability myself. And then also we've got a number of people who are quite keen on climate action, climate literacy, all the different things, climate pedagogy. So that's partly why we have gotten to be involved here. And Michelle is kind of our flag bearer for a lot of that. And so, as I mentioned, we have 2 meetings a month, a general meeting where we connect and share with each other what's happening around the country, explore possible ideas for working together, and share resources. And so that's been really tremendous. And again, learning what our offices of sustainability are up to, as well as what our faculty and instructors are doing, has been really, really powerful. This year, we also have got a website, and we're trying to emerge and grow and learn what more can we do to really develop climate action and sustainability literacy across the country. And so on our website, yes, Michelle has put it, shiac.ca. We're basically saying we're a grassroots network of staff and faculty from higher ed institutions across all of Canada. We are committed to fostering campus sustainability and advancing sustainability education and climate action. So this is kind of our statement of being. We welcome anyone that would like to join. We are working now on grant proposals together, shared resources. Ty Monroe, who I think is still here, has a phenomenal bot to look using AI to help figure out how we can recognize and embed the Sustainable Development Goals and different aspects of sustainability. So there's a lot of things that we're doing together, kind of building this network and community across Canada. And I have been quite pleased to help move it along as the incoming chair and coordinator for this year. So I think that's probably all I need to say for right now. I look forward to the conversation with the other panelists and with you, Serge. So I will let you take it away. Thank you.
Perfect, Terry. Don't leave me now. I'm gonna go right in with you. But first of all, wow, what a great panel! I'm quite humbled to be sitting with you people here and managing this discussion. So we've already pointed out some really interesting activities here. So let me build on that a bit to get us started, I guess, and grounded from where you sit, Terry. I'll go to Terry first. What kinds of collaboration is already happening across institutions right now? And is it working, or even if it's still emerging, what are you seeing right away?
Absolutely. I think we've been seeing, as I mentioned, the shared resources. So that's a form of collaboration, making sure that we all recognize that we don't have to build everything from the ground up on our own, that we could take advantage of what each other is working on. So that's been a fantastic example of collaboration. We're working on some, as I mentioned, a shared proposal to see what more we can do. And then also what Sonia mentioned, the Building Resilient Futures, is a fantastic example of the collaboration between SHIAC and Universities Canada and the climate initiative there. So that's just, we're really trying to build that sense of collective action and collaborate whenever and wherever we can, whether it's internally or across our institutions. And so, yeah, I would say that's just a few examples of things we're doing, we're trying to do.
The very best. I'm going to jump over to Siebert and then to Sonia on the same thing. Where are you seeing collaboration already happening in your areas, Siebert?
Thanks, Serge. And I think from two main perspectives, we're seeing the kinds of collaboration. One from an academic perspective, but also from an advocacy perspective. And I'll start with the advocacy perspective that, we are a 15-member institution that I spoke about earlier. We've been doing lots of advocacy. We have on the Hill events where we go in and talk with the politicians and, just share with them the work that C2R2 is doing, aligned with some of the federal priorities that they've got. And that has been working so very well for us because our institutional members get to then speak not only with their own representatives but other folks who are on the Hill, along with some of the other institutions that are there. Across the network, though, what we have seen is more from an academic perspective, some really informal and formal collaborations, including curriculum sharing and co-development. It has been amazing how much curricula we have developed together and that we have shared. And so take, for example, when one member of the coalition, they were doing great work in electric vehicle and training those technicians, and, other jurisdictions needed that training, and they were able to share their curricula, but also bring faculty from different regions to train them in the regions that were doing well. So we're seeing those curriculum sharing and co-development. We have done lots of joint applied research projects, social research and social kind of engagement that we're looking at. We have developed communities of practice where we're bringing together folks from across the member institutions, where they get together and really dream and talk about how should we be approaching the work. We have looked at communities of practice related to the quality assurance of developing the micro-credential opportunities, and how do we build that framework that is going to allow those micro-credentials to become stackable and recognizable and portable across the country. We've done some partnerships with municipalities and indigenous communities and industry partners where we really have gone in. And like I said earlier, that, we had one company in particular who saw the work that we were doing, came in and said to us, here's a real need that we're seeing in our industry. How can we partner with you to help you enable some research opportunities that would engage students to be part of those research projects that would provide solutions to what they're experiencing in their particular industry? And that has been working very well. And then, just working with our sector partners to provide internship opportunities and those work integrated learning opportunities really have been emerging very well for us.
Again, a lot of work there, Siebert. That's the very best. I'm gonna go into Sonia to see what you'd like to add to where you're seeing right now the collaboration and where it's happening.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can just give like a kind of an overview of what we've been seeing from UC's perspective. And there's definitely been collaboration noted like on climate education, as well as research. We do see a lot of institutions collaborating together on different environmental sustainable research initiatives. I would say there's also a lot of work being done within the variety of networks that are across Canada. I mean, there's the Atlantic Network, Quebec, and there's even BC working on initiatives together. In Quebec, the network, the sustainability network there, I think there's about 18 universities that form that network. They just came together to develop a Scope 3 emissions methodology. UC helped translate that, and then we're going to be sharing that with all the institutions that are interested. So that's, yeah, a great initiative there. And yes, other types of initiatives from, from publicly funded projects. We've got BC's Adaptation Learning Network and all that, being done by like the design lab at Royal Roads. They've been doing a lot of work and collaborating with some of the BC universities. And I also, I'm not as fully engaged in this, but, also noting that there's a lot of institutions that also collaborate internationally on a lot of the sustainable goal initiatives and whatnot. So yeah, definitely a lot of work going on.
Wow. No, that's great. And I'm seeing already things that I'll comment on a little later on what we're seeing. But it makes me a little bit curious about all this energy. Like you folks are very energized. So I'll stick with you for now, Sonia. Then I'll go to Terry and Siebert. But where's this momentum coming from? Like all this energy, like who's carrying or sparking this work that you're seeing to make this collaboration so much easier and me even to sustain it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of passionate individuals out there, but yeah, I think it's some of the networks are helping to promote a lot of this work, and then like leaders from even like within the institutions, people that are associated with the sustainability offices. There's educational developers, and then individual academics, researchers, like faculty. So they're all passionate and very interested in this work and are moving things along. I would say there's a couple key sort of enabling factors which are really helpful in promoting and moving along institutional collaboration in this space. I would say one is the sort of the climate and sustainability leadership at institutions. I do find that if there is a lot of sustainability and climate leadership, and these principles are integrated into the institution's strategic plan, even like into its like broader in its mandates and its broader purpose. I do think that really helps get that momentum going, that support and the funding and all that for individuals or for number or institutions to work in this space and then have the capacity to collaborate. Also, I do find that having national policy frameworks in place with dedicated or targeted funding and these kinds of streams of funding for environmental, climate, sustainability work is also a really important and enabling factor. And we see this with the National Adaptation Strategy and NRCan's Climate Change Adaptation Program. There's dedicated funding to do this kind of work, and yeah, I definitely find that's really important.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Terry, what are your thoughts on who's sparking this work and these all these great initiatives?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people, a lot of what Sonia mentioned actually, and I put in the chat as well. We have people who are fully engaged that are coming from offices of sustainability, looking at how do we improve the campus sustainability itself, the physical plant, the infrastructure, heading toward net zero, just better landscaping plans, all of that kind of work, as well as people coming from teaching and learning centers to support instruction. There are campuses living lab people working on all kinds of really cool initiatives, as well as faculty who are actually doing teaching in classrooms more. And it's really coming from the passion and the enthusiasm of individuals. For many of us, we're meeting and doing this off the side of our desk. It's not what we're actively paid for or have listed as part of our job duties, but people do it anyway. And I think that's just really critical. That's something we all know that this is essential. And we all, I think, enjoy connecting with each other. It's what keeps us coming back. And helping to keep it going, helping keep that momentum, I think really is having a coordinating person that can put some time and energy into making sure that we meet regularly and that we have that chance to connect and share what we're up to. And I'm hoping that as we go forward and emerge as an organization, that we'll also have more common goals that we're working toward, as well as all the separate stuff that's going on is certainly something I'm hoping that we move toward. But I think that's the thing. I put my time into it because it's worth it. It's work worth doing. It's important stuff.
Yeah, I think I can virtually see people nodding their heads in this call. I'll go to Siebert on his thoughts on where do you see the spark coming on the college side?
Yeah, so I think some similar perspectives, Serge. I think in addition to the academic leadership, or deans or associate deans or leaders across the college, but also faculty, and like others have said, from various centers, whether it be our applied research areas or sustainability offices. But I think for us, through C2R2 and the college sector, when we think about the enabling factors, really, it has to do with a couple of things that we've seen work for us through this consortia. One is that strong institutional commitment. We had lots and lots of conversations with many of the institutions when we were establishing this framework, and we saw from the 15-member coalition those strong institutional commitment to really making a lasting impact on climate change. We saw we had to develop real trust and relationships because this was going to be something new. These were 15 institutions with different leadership who were at different places, coming together from different provinces, who reported to different ministries, who hadn't shared curricula and those things before. And so we had to really go through a process of developing that trust and that relationship, and particularly with our industry partners who had similar goals and values and priorities. But I want to say that so two groups that I think are also part of our main enabling factors. One, industry. We were hearing from industry. This is what they were seeing. This is what they wanted to do because it was impacting so many different things. It was impacting trade relationships. It was impacting how they worked, how they were managing their sales and developing their product, because this is what consumers were asking for. But most importantly, Serge, is about the students. We were hearing this from students, and I give you just one stat from us here at Mohawk College, where the secretariat is. 94% of our students says that they were very concerned about the climate and climate change issues, and so we needed to pay attention to it, which led us at Mohawk to becoming the first institution in North America to receive the Responsible Futures designation, which comes out of the UK, which really engaged students in an institutional audit to see, are we doing the things that they are very interested in, that we should be, that their students are concerned about, because they're very concerned about the climate and their future. So those are some of the things that are driving the work that we do, or the industry partners who are saying we need graduates who are coming out with these skills, knowledge, and competencies, and our students who are saying you have got to do this. It is incumbent on you as institutions to be doing this and to be providing us with that knowledge.
Wow, I think we're hearing that all around. But tell me, Siebert, you're talking about all this momentum, but there's always, it's not always smooth sailing, I think. So can you tell us or share with us, and I'll ask the others to share too, like collaborations isn't always friction-free. What tends to slow things down, make this cross-institution or cross-disciplinary work a little harder in practice? And how have you, yeah.
Now, I think Terry mentioned one in her closing. When we think about a lot of this work, and particularly, I think it's no secret, what's going on in post-secondary across the country now, particularly related to funding models and resources, that institutions are not funded properly to be able to manage this work and to get the right people in this space to do this work. And so a lot of the work that people are doing right across the institutions are being done on the side of people's desk. So there's limited capacity and workload pressures that we find happening across the member institutions. And so timeliness in moving things is a challenge. Responsiveness and the ability a lot of times to be as creative as you want to. Then there are those provincial structures and framework where different colleges in different jurisdictions report to different institutions or different levels of government and how they respond to them. I give you a real one. So, for example, we have two partners in Quebec where institutions in Quebec are not they cannot benefit from federal funding. And so we had to really then be very creative about how we were going to be working with all partners, including our French partners across the country. Inconsistent funding models right across the country. Challenges around credit recognition and how are we going to be porting micro-credentials from one jurisdiction to another when there were different quality assurance framework and recognition systems. And so getting around some of that, lack of a shared platform. So we had to talk about, building quick train, but how do we roll this out and deploy this? And then the whole challenge of geographic distance and, particularly with institutions and working with our indigenous communities who were in rural or remote areas, and how were we going to be deploying the training solutions many of which were going to be developed and deployed virtually, and how were we going to be helping those institutions to be getting access and supporting the students, supporting the learners in the same way. And so we had to be very creative in terms of how to work around, and are still grappling with many of those as we deploy the solutions across the member institutions.
Great, that's great. Sonia, what are your thoughts on what slows things down a bit on your end that you might see that might be same as other people on this call?
Sure. I mean, I agree with Siebert on a bunch of those. I think, I mean, it's pretty easy to, notice that a lot of it is just, limited time, resources, capacity, funding, to do this kind of work. And yes, as Terry mentioned, is kind of a lot of this is done on the side of your desk. It can also be hard to kind of sustain some of these networks or communities of practice when, there's staff turnover or there's different, people, move into different positions and, and now who takes over. It is a lot of work. So I think one of those other kind of barriers, I would say, or challenges are just, it's just the situation we are in. Unfortunately, I don't really want to be having to bring it up, but there is senior leadership that is focused on some other priorities right now, like institutional funding and enrollment and all that. So kind of leaves not as much bandwidth to be able to be focused on some of the other really high priorities, such as climate and sustainability. And definitely, like UC is feeling this as well. So our work is again is basically it's we do what what the members are looking for us to do. That's how we prioritize. So again, it's hard for us to continue as well when our members are focused on some of these other priorities in our current situation. So but yeah, I think that's there's probably a few more, but I'll leave it at that.
I'll let Terry close out this portion on the things that maybe slow yourself down a little bit. What are you seeing on your end, Terry?
Sure. I'll just point out a couple things from my perspective. So we've all mentioned time, the fact that people are doing this off the side of their desk and finding the time to keep it going is a really critical thing and can be a barrier. I'm going to say also partly the scale and the scope of the work that we're trying to do. It spans such a wide range. And getting common understanding of what do we each all mean by either adaptation or mitigation or simply sustainability or literacy or what should we be doing. So that can be a barrier. It certainly takes time and in collaborating to make effective collaboration, we need to be making sure that we're defining what is that scale and that scope. So that can be a barrier. And then the other one I'm thinking, there's two more. One is the governance models that we have, and I teach university governance, and I work a lot in the reimagining governance. I'm teaching a short course right now on reimagining governance that will allow for inclusive pathways to sustainability. But we have two there's a flatter academic level of governance, how we get curriculum changes passed and made versus the administrative governance, which is a lot more top down. And so there's a real difference in how fast we can get things going and how those collaborations can be approved or changes could be approved. So that can be a real barrier, actually. And then finally, this sense of competition versus collaboration, that we're constantly kind of vying with one another, oftentimes, maybe not always, but for rankings, right? And we want to show that we are number 5 in the country or number 1, or we're reaching for the stars. And that can be a barrier to actually saying, no, let's do something together for the good of the region. Or for the good of our area, or collaboratively in our metro region, whatever it is. So I think that can be a barrier and one worth considering. What can we do instead?
No, I agree. I'm going to stay with you, Terry. Like if I didn't want to dwell on any of these things, but it's good to hear what's happening around for others too. But so if we flip that around now and look at from barriers to possibilities now. So with those pinch points you mentioned, what could help, I guess, structures, incentives to make our collaboration feel less ad hoc and maybe more normal for everyone? What would you see coming out of that?
Well, normal is the word. I was just thinking, actually, the idea of normalizing sharing, normalizing connection and collaboration, which goes hand in hand with recognizing that, and I say this, it's not overly dramatic to say this is about the sustainability of humans on the planet, and whether we thrive or whether we just survive or whether we drive ourselves extinct completely. So it's not overly dramatic to say that. This is sort of the highest stakes that there are. And so we need to find ways, and I think we can find ways to work together and to recognize that we're all in this. There's at least pieces of all of this that we're all in it together. That's a huge thing. But a slightly more, maybe smaller scale, I'm not sure. Another aspect to this is actually recognizing that in our given institutions and across them, we're a system. And sometimes we overfocus, I think, on just faculty or just instructional side of things. But we have to remember that our staff have very different opportunities, and we can really empower and enable the staff and have amazing things happen. Faculty and instructors are often used to reaching out across institutional boundaries, but I don't see as many networking opportunities for staff members to connect and share projects and resources. And I think we could do a lot with that, and remembering that it takes all of us.
Those are good points, very good points. I work at a university too, and there's almost as much staff as you have students almost. There's a potential there that we're not really picking up on.
Right.
I'm gonna finish off with Sonia on this piece. Sorry, Siebert first. I wanted to Siebert on the on where do you see where we could go to make things more normal, I guess, or the possibilities that you see to make this happen.
Yeah, no, I so agree with Terry and the point that she made in terms of we've got to break down those silos, right? And so rather than always seeming to be competing against each other, how are we complementing the work that we're doing, whether we be colleges, CEGEPs, polytechs, universities? How are we going to be, what are those structures that we're going to be putting in to really have intentional collaborative framework that recognizes and supports the work that each other is doing? Is there a way that we can, develop some kind of a shared digital platform that we're sharing research and case studies and outputs of different things that we're doing, share curricula? How do we really begin to establish kind of thematic working groups that could really be looking at areas of priority, like Terry mentioned, whether it be climate adaptation, working with our indigenous communities around workforce development pieces, and how do we bring in that kind of a two-eyed seeing approach? Indigenous peoples have been around for years and looking after the environment, and how do we make sure that we are bringing those voices in? How do we really develop intentional framework and clear articulation of outcomes and because I think that the more we do together, we then have a stronger voice to go in and to advocate to the powers that be, whether it be the policymakers at the federal government level or the provincial level, but really being intentional about how are we going to do this together, which is why, again, like I said, this was one of the impetus that pulled us for this, because I think that this is a great platform for us to be doing this. I've learned so much, and so I want to already reach out to both Terry and Sonia to their organizations to see what are they doing and how can C2R2 become part of those framework that we can then be very intentional about working together and supporting each other with the work that's happening.
Oh, that's excellent. So we're already building some new partnerships here, which is great. Sonia, what are your thoughts on what you see as possibilities coming up?
Yeah, I mean, Terry and Siebert have mentioned this already, but really importantly, to note is like we are in this together, and it's not doing anybody, a favor by just competing in this space. We're all affected. So, working together to have those open resources and sharing resources, like perhaps having that national hub or platform where we can share information, I think would be really great. Continuing to advocate to the government, having them understand that this is an important issue, it's an urgent issue, and having perhaps, develop more strategies, policies, and funding streams that could be implemented. One thing I would also suggest is there is so much work going on, and not a lot of people have too much time. And sometimes it seems like there's actually too much going on. There is all these webinars, there's all these events, there's this newsletter, that newsletter, and there does tend to be some overlap. So sometimes actually, almost like less could be more. So if we are a little bit more targeted, if we see what everybody's doing, and we can perhaps, join forces there, and perhaps have like lesser but more targeted events and information sharing, that could actually even be helpful too, because yeah, sometimes it's just that it can be actually overwhelming. So and then as you're just wasting your resources at that point, right? So yeah.
No, those are good points. There's a lot of work to be done, and sometimes it's difficult to focus. So I'm gonna ask a little last round of questions here, and I'll ask the people who are online to prepare their questions. I've seen a few come in, so I'd like people to discuss and get into that. So let's look ahead. Let's look forward and see and zoom out a bit. So I'll stay with you, Sonia, and then I'll go to Terry and then Siebert before I go to the public here. Looking in the future, I guess, or forward, where do you see, I guess, real opportunities for your organization to work together to advance climate adaptation in curricula and programs? Where do you see? Is it policy, funding, coordination? What would make something like that possible?
I mean, there's a few things. I will start off that one is like for working together with these networks, and not just maybe us here today, but like all the other networks that are around. Number one is kind of just a foundational thing. We need to be aware of each other. We need to communicate together and know what everybody is doing. Again, we don't want to be duplicating efforts and wasting time and energy doing the same work. So I think that's kind of number one. Two, I would say pooling the resources, like we've already kind of mentioned, but also leveraging each other's areas of expertise. So I think that's important. And Siebert mentioned going on the Hill, and I think that's an important factor, because I think if we coordinated our policy advocacy where and when possible, I think if we went out with one voice, we'd be a stronger unified front, and it would help us obtain those, help get those, like, again, the government strategies, the funding, that awareness that needs to happen. So at those higher levels. And I would say those are sort of, those are a couple of things. I mean, obviously there's other sort of areas that we could be working on together, like co-creating some national frameworks and sharing micro-credentials and all that kind of stuff. But I'll leave it there for now.
I know it's good. Terry, what are your thoughts on looking ahead and for curriculum programs?
Sure. A couple of thoughts. I really agree with the idea of focusing on impact and being intentional about what we're doing, because this kind of work is not going to happen by accident. So I think that's a really key point that was raised. I also think the idea of being collaborative, finding a platform in a way that we can share across institutions and across areas. I think that's going to be really critical. That is, in fact, SHIEC's primary purpose, and it was the reason it came into being. And so I think that's going to be, we're really wanting to move into that space with anyone and everyone, and find out where it takes us. And I agree with Sonia, something that we've been working hard on this year, and partly why we share what everybody's got going on, is so that rather than having disaggregated, separated, overwhelming tons of different events, really thinking about more of a constellation that creates a pattern that says this is who we are in Canada working on climate action, climate adaptation, climate mitigation. This is what we're doing in our discovery and our teaching and learning and our engagement with communities, which I think is really key. But the last point that occurred to me that we haven't talked as much about, and it was just mentioned, I think, Siebert, you just mentioned it, is that the students, of course, right, that's a force and a really critical force. And so thinking about how we can engage and leverage that student enthusiasm and power and passion for the work and for their future is going to be an enormous part of going forward, and thinking about how do we best do that. I think that's going to be really key. And then the last one, our Indigenous colleagues as well, as Siebert, you also mentioned too, I'd see really finding how do we weave together and braid together what is usually a parallel path, but how do we find the connection points so that we can go together forward in a good way. So I think that to me is another really important part of all of this. So I'll stop there.
Those are great points. Siebert, you might want to, it's your turn now, so maybe you want to chime in on that. And what do you see as looking ahead on curriculum programs?
Yeah, no, I agree with Terry and Son, and I think just to amplify, really providing how can we develop access to shared data, tools, and research resources. Again, like I said, from just my interaction over a couple of meetings with the different groups, there's so much work that's going on in this space. How are we going to be bringing all of that together and really having some kind of a repository that we can really access? Policy flexibility between institutions so that we can share curricula and recognize credentials and recognize the great work that's happening across the different levels of the educational sector. And I think targeted funding is always one of those. I know that that's always a piece that we can't miss, because if we're going to be really looking at curriculum development and getting the right people who have the right skill sets to be able to do the work in a real good way that's going to have the impact that it should, then we need some targeted funding, whether it be from industry or from government, but somewhere that we can do that. And how do we jointly go in and seek for some of those funding? And then I think the last piece I'd say is, some professional development and training for our faculty and staff around, what does that pedagogy look like? How do we integrate these into our curricula so that our students, when they're leaving the academy, it doesn't matter what program they have pursued, it doesn't matter what their discipline, but everybody's leaving with this mindset that is going to be helping to protect the climate. And so everybody needs to be leaving with that. And so how do we work together as universities and colleges and CGEPs and politics and industry to develop that set of learning outcomes that we say we want all our learners from elementary throughout the entire educational system to be leaving with, so that they've got that level of knowledge.
Thanks so much. I suspect many people in the audience are nodding their heads right now, and it's great because it's. I'd like to thank the panel on their first thoughts on a few questions we had to put together for our viewers. And so, as we're listening to each other, people, what are your questions, or what are your institutions are doing right now? Where might collaboration start tomorrow? Is there any success stories in our audience today that people that would like to share? Just raise your hands, and then I can, it'd be great if we'd see your face. I don't know if Ted wants to come on the screen. Ted's got a couple questions in the chat, and if not, I'll go ahead and ask the big questions Ted has for us or for the panel is, what are your thoughts on the universities using fossil fuels or on their carbon footprint, and also on AI in regards to how that affects the climate as now, and maybe in regards to policies, or what are you folks already looking at that a bit, or your institutions? Does somebody want to chime in on that first?
I can jump in terms of reducing the carbon footprint. One of the things that we're doing, which is always so hard, right, in terms of getting the practice to operations. We are dealing with so many outliers and the demographic of learners as to whether you move things online, which then pushes the energy somewhere else. companies are now asking us to go into artificial intelligence and data centers becoming new thing. And how do you really grapple with all these many things that's then pushing for other kind of energy? But how do we go to district energy and the kind of clean energy? I think it's working through. One of the things that we're doing at our local college, and we'll be rolling this out across our C2R2 network, is establishing a digital twin hub, working with an institution like Arizona State University that's going to be developing this digital twin hub that's going to be helping us to map out our physical location to say, how do we retrofit? How do we do or facilities plan that is going to be allowing us to get to the levels that we would really like to get to. I think we had really ambitious climate action plans, which talked about reducing the footprint by X over a number of years. Again, we're pushing up against so many different things, so those continue to be revised. So I think that's what we are currently now doing. How are we going to be working with our facilities folks? How are we working with our academic folks to look at the way we develop and deliver? When do we bring students in? The kind of campus that we want? How do we ensure that in everything that we're doing, including whether it be transportation, including the way that we're integrating technology to food services, how are we really engaging sustainability principles to get us to some level that we can all live with?
Oh, it's great. Terry or Sonia, do you have anything to add there? If not,
Sure.
that's fine too. Terry?
I can jump in because
Yeah.
I'm going to echo. I got two thoughts on this that cover all three of those questions, I think. One is to echo a little bit of what Sonia was alluding to, which is there's very real variation across the provinces and the different areas and different institutions in terms of the politics involved. And the priorities that are set at the university level, at the executive level, are often reflecting pressures or priorities coming externally. And so we sometimes find ourselves in tension with what might be a stated priority from our students or our staff and faculty with other stated priorities that of the context where we sit. So that can be a real challenge in terms of some of the things when you talk about divestment or action on carbon footprints or anything related to AI and data centers. Water is a huge thing with regard to data centers, and is something that in our region, in Calgary in particular, is really a concern. And we haven't quite figured out how do we work across the system, again, the governance of water system here. But I think it's important to recognize that there's patchy prioritization and priorities that are being driven for different reasons. That's point one. Point two is a little simpler point, which is when it comes to some of the decarbonizing and the footprints, don't give up on the ASHE STARS rating system. We need to have data. And a lot of universities are moving away from STARS because it is labor intensive and it can be expensive. However, it's really critical. Institutions, some of them are moving away from STARS toward Times Higher Ed impact rankings or other forms of sharing impact that they may be having, but a ranking is not the same as a rating. And so that would be my, as imperfect as it is, the STARS is still the most objective measure that we have. And it's a way of being able to compare data point for data point, how we're doing. And without those benchmarks, it's really hard to know how are we actually accomplishing some of those net zero goals or reducing our carbon footprint goals. So that's my little pitch. I'll step off my soapbox now for a second, but I do think that's really important. If it's not STARS, then something else.
Awesome. I don't know, Sonia, if you had something or do you want me to move on to something else?
I guess a couple comments.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say on the first one, besides my own personal opinions, which you could probably imagine what they are. But when it comes to the carbon footprints of institutions, I mean, I would say that the majority of institutions, I would say, at least I would say from a university perspective, they are measuring their carbon footprints, and a lot of them do have some sort of commitments or targets that they have set for themselves. And there are quite a few projects as well where they're trying to connect universities with different transit systems, and even when it comes to student housing, there is some requirements even like for GHGs or resilience around those as well. So I do think there's work that's being done there, and that's positive. When it comes to AI, definitely, like Terry said, I mean, it's energy, it's water intensive. I think we need to be really careful as to where we're placing these, and try to promote locations that have cleaner energy, and where the water impacts can also be managed. And I'm really hoping that there's some more of the innovation, like there's more innovation and some new technology that comes out that allows for AI that is using using less resources and is less impactful. So we'll see how those roll out.
Awesome. Those are great responses off the cuff there. We've got, as an engineer, I'm going to, in 9 minutes, I want to go back to Sarah, who ran this whole forum here. And give us enough time for the finish by the bottom of the hour. I'll get you guys all out here by then. So I had a quick question. I'm not seeing anybody else with a hand up at the time. We're talking about curricula and changing that. I don't know about yourselves, but I work at a university. I won't say which one, but it seems like changing curricula or whatnot is a slow moving, if it even works. Like I've studied here many years ago, and it's almost the same way as I'm teaching now than I've received at the time. And we have people here from colleges and universities. So maybe we'll start with Siebert at the college level. Usually you should be working quicker than universities. What's your take on that, on changing curricula? And then I'll go to the others for their comments.
Yeah, no, definitely we are. I think we're a little bit more flexible, and move with a little bit more speed in terms of changing curricula. And I think we have been doing that and really trying to respond. The challenge, I think, for us is around the funding. Again, I go back to that bad word, the lack of funding that we have as post-secondary institutions to be able to make the kind of change that we want to. But I think incrementally what we're doing is making those changes. However, if we had the right level of funding, we would be able to make those changes in a much more rapid way that could be a little bit more overarching. And so what we see happening now, we make a little bit of change. We don't have the funding, so it gets stalled for a little bit. By the time we're ready to make the change again, things have moved so far ahead that we're always kind of trying to play catch up. But I think that we have been really looking at how do we impact the curricula in a way that represents what do we want our learners to be able to leave with. And this is why I mentioned earlier, our learners are asking us for it. 94% of our learners in the college sector have said, we are concerned about this. We need to see this in the curricula. And I think we have been trying. It's that funding piece that's not helping us to get to move at the speed that we need to.
Yeah, and I remember when you mentioned industry also comes to see you and says, we need changes. So
That's right.
So no, I appreciate the college perspective. Terry or Sonia, what are you seeing on your ends? Who wants to chime in first on that piece?
Terry, I'm sure I'll let you go first because
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is related to what I mentioned in one of my other comments about the governance models for the academic side and instruction and teaching and learning compared to the more top-down direct line of change that we can make if we want to do infrastructure or physical plant changes. So it gets complicated by the fact that at the universities, it's got to go through bicameral governance. It's got to go through a faculty senate. There's layers and layers of approval. So we don't have some of the same flexibility that Siebert is mentioning. But I think what we can do is there's two areas that we can change the pedagogies that we use. We can support one another as instructors. We can leverage the amazing work that our teaching and learning centers and the Michelle and the institute that's supporting all of this. Like we can work together to change how we're teaching, which can be really powerful. But also we could think about less formal changes that we are allowed to make where we could be teaching collectively, bringing modules into the various syllabi. So there's things that we can do to advocate for common learning outcomes, as Hubert mentioned. So we shouldn't throw up our hands in helplessness and say there's nothing we can do because it's too slow. There are things we can do.
Yep.
So I think that's worth remembering. And I think that's yeah. And then we can think about that right now while still laying a groundwork and building toward more of a future, Canada level. What is it that we think all Canadians should know about climate and sustainability? So we can work on the bigger thing while doing what we can to make changes collectively, internally, and collaboratively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are you thinking, Sonia?
Yeah, I mean, I think Terry kind of covered it. It is such a slow process. Just the way, the government structures, it's all set up. And I would say that, I'd have, I mean, possibilities are, there's some little changes again that Terry mentioned that we could do. But even having some resources that are available for students, outside of things. And if they, there's, student networks as well that can share resources and information. Yes, it's kind of, on the side, but still, they're still learning, they're getting some information. I think that at least for now, just to get things moving and get things started, that could just be an initial first step.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great segue, Sonia, and to both of you also. Before I'm going to kind of stop the questions there, and I'll just do a little wrap up before I invite Sarah Birch to share and close out this great week of forum. I want to thank my three panelists. I say my panelists as if I chose them. I couldn't imagine how great a panelist we could have, and the expertise in the crowd is really great. And what I picked up. One was students. We can't forget that the reason we're all here is because of the students, and they have a voice. And I really enjoyed hearing on different ways that we can do that. The sharing piece I find is, if we could just show our cards a little more. I find a lot of people, it's competition. That's what I preach here is, cut and paste, I almost say, but sharing what we're doing to not reinvent the wheel and to keep moving ahead. The other thing I heard was the champions, and you say we're doing it on the side of our desks, but really you are champions, and this is, and I think it's important that we keep doing this work. We keep volunteering our time for this, and the people who are on the call are probably the same. You just need to keep doing it, and what helps is, I find is you mentioned the standardization. Either call it the stars where you're measuring. Either you call it the policies, a strategic plan. Sometimes you need that high level document to help yourself push, help get the funding move ahead. I think those are things that we see. And before I finish up, I'll go on the advocacy piece. Siebert mentioned advocacy, and sometimes I get discouraged, or I think, oh man, we got all this work to do. We're living on a planet that's burning up. I'm exaggerating a little bit, or flooding, or whatnot. But in the end, I go back because I'm a little older, so I go back and I see where were we 20 years ago, 10 years ago. What we were preaching then is being done now, and I think we've moved ahead. And I think we've moved ahead, and that it requires us to keep doing it. And I think in 10 years, we won't be talking about the same things today. Some things will have gone better. And then in the future, we'll be working on other things. So let's not stop. Let's stay focused and stay optimistic on that. And according to me, I'd give you all these three panelists superstars. I'd give you all the stars you need. I want to thank you very much for sharing today, and most people are still on the call right now, which is great to see. So on my behalf, merci beaucoup à tout le monde qui est là, and for people inviting me to be able to share a bit of my thoughts with these great people. And I'll pass it on now to Sarah Birch to close out this great forum for this year, and I wish you everybody else the best.
Thanks, Serge. That was great. And I love the positive note that we can end on, that there's really been so much progress and so much hard work that's unfolded over the past couple of decades. So I think taking a moment to celebrate that as well, and to just sort of, enjoy the victories despite the, challenges, of course, that we heard about here today and throughout the week. So thank you for that, Serge, and for your, effusive and warm moderating. That was really a lovely lovely session to watch. Thank you so much. So it's my privilege to come on right at the end here and wrap up a really full and vibrant week. For those of you who haven't met me or who weren't present on the first day, my name is Sarah Birch. I'm the Executive Director of the Waterloo Climate Institute. I'm a professor here at the University of Waterloo in the Department of Geography. And I've been involved in this space for a long time. I do a lot of work with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations body, and I've worked with the federal government on the National Adaptation Strategy as well. So this work is very, very close to my heart, not just as my executive director role, but also in my own research and teaching. So yes, to wrap up the panel, thank you so much to Serge and Terry, Sonia, and Siebert for such a great, lively discussion. I heard really important themes kind of resonating throughout the whole panel. Certainly, we feel the urgency of this work continues, connecting climate education to our other sustainable development goals and priorities, and making sure that we weave those together, both in our teaching and in our campus operations and our network building is so important. I heard some interesting kind of allusions to strategy about how to align this work with federal priorities and university level priorities that shift over time. So that's an important strategic task that I think we all are very familiar with and undertaking on a daily basis. So much to take away from there. And thank you all to the panelists, Serge, Terry, Sonia, and Siebert, for the work that you do, not just today, of course, but every day. With the institutions that you're a part of, the Adaptation Skills Working Group. I've dipped into that myself a few times and I hear nothing but incredible stuff. Universities Canada, SHIAC, Canadian Colleges for Resilient Recovery. So really great job. So on to our incredibly long and an excellent list of other folks that I'd love to thank before we finish our time together. So a thank you to our session moderators and the presenters over the past 4 days. I can't list them all. There were 29. So thank you to that incredible team for turning up this week. We're so grateful. We know your lives are full and your schedules are packed, and that's just sort of living in 2026. But the care that you took to be here, to deepen this community of practice, to share your experience, and to really engage in thought-provoking discussions was unparalleled. So thank you. Thank you to our translators. We so appreciate Mike and Carolyn for your work to make this more inclusive and engaging to Canadians all across the country. Your support of the Climate Institute team has been really incredible. And speaking of which, to the Climate Institute team, Michelle, Martin in particular, of course, but our whole team, Natalie, Simon, Darren, Vanita, everybody, it's been a team effort all week. So thank you very much. On to the most important, all those participants that we've had all week. Thank you for taking your time out to be a part of these panels and join in and ask questions. We had 400 participants in total joining us from across the country and outside of the country as well, which is pretty remarkable. All sorts of disciplines, which I love to see as an interdisciplinarian myself. We have folks from accounting and engineering and planning and architecture and environmental studies and landscape architecture, really the gamut. And coming from such disciplinary backgrounds, diverse disciplinary backgrounds as well. Some of you are academics, some of you are, post-secondary instructors, educational support staff, many of you are practitioners. We also had some students, so a really good range there. And that, I think, really enriched the conversations and the perspectives that we had. So the presence of all of these folks, of the moderators, of the participants, of the panelists, really helped to, I think, advance our understanding of what climate change competencies look like, what they need to look like, where they're headed, how we integrate them into our curricula, what kind of new innovative teaching practices we've experimented with or shared, so that we can not just share, the necessary truths, the grim stories, the realities of things, but also hope and agency and compassion and, really mobilizing our students across all of these programs to do good work. In our opening plenary, I had the privilege of welcoming Elder Mayangan Henry to give us a really nice start to the week. And he's always so eloquent and wise, and drew our attention to how important it is to connect our work to this land that we are on, that we share, the wisdom that's all around us that we have a responsibility to weave into our work, and who we're doing it for. A really nice reminder of family and community and, that sort of deeper motivation. So I don't think he's here on this final session, but I really appreciated Elder Henry's contributions there. So now we move on to, we continue with, this isn't new, but the ongoing task of implementation, taking what we've learned this week, doing something new, doing something different, making a new connection, shifting our programs, chipping away at our institutions in all kinds of creative ways, so that we can take what we hear from our students, which I heard in this session this afternoon as well. We're hearing from students that this is such critical work, and responding to that as part of making universities relevant and colleges relevant and education in general relevant to the changing demands that students are facing in their careers and their lives. So, how do we weave climate change so that it's central throughout a person's whole, professional life and experience and educational journey? I think that's the challenge we have ahead of us. So I encourage, of course, everyone to stay connected, to continue the momentum that we've built. Our project, the ACE project, Accelerating Climate Education, is one of our main goals is to support this community of practice. We're here for you. We wouldn't be here without you. And we're so grateful to Natural Resources Canada for supporting that project and our work here through their climate adaptation program. So if you'd like to amplify your work, Sonia, you mentioned that sometimes there's this not an overabundance, but this incredible, wealth of initiatives and webinars and ways to learn. So we're very happy to hear from you and to amplify that through our networks. We're also beginning to think about our next forum. It's never too early. And that will take place at the end of this year. So we invite all of the participants that have been with us for the last few days to complete our feedback form. So that'll help us understand, what worked well, what we can improve a little bit, what you'd like to see in the future events. And Michelle just put up this lovely slide here with a QR code. You can access the form via that QR code there, and we'll also email a link to all of you by tomorrow. So with that, thank you all so much for your time today and all week. It's been an honor. The Waterloo Climate Institute is thrilled to be a part of this community and do whatever we can to deepen our collaboration. So have a lovely afternoon, evening, and I look forward to staying in touch. Thank you, everyone.